Who would have guessed that Lyra, the waitress with a scar tracing her collarbone, would be the quiet sanctuary for young Elara and the prominent mark on his cheek? Their unusual empathy was shattered by a cruel insult. But the next morning, a line of soldiers appeared before the morning glory, revealing another identity of Lyra's, one that would leave everyone astonished. Hello everyone, now we begin in the gentle hush of a place you've never been, but somehow already know. Imagine the faint clink of cutlery, the steady hum of an old ceiling fan, and the early morning gold light seeping through steamed-up windows. It's a modest diner at the edge of nowhere, called the Morning Glory. The kind of place where time doesn't rush and coffee refills are more about comfort than caffeine. Behind the counter, a woman moves with practiced calm. Her name is Lyra Vance, and she has a scar, just visible beneath the collar of her pale blue uniform. At the window seat, like clockwork, sits a boy. He's around 10. Doesn't speak. Always orders the same thing, toasted bread and a warm glass of milk. His name is Elara Knox. And on his left cheek, bold and unmissable, is a red, curved scar that makes most people look twice, then away. He doesn't smile. He doesn't talk. But he always looks at Lyra with a kind of quiet study, as though he's trying to understand something about her that no one else bothers to see. You probably won't survive this story with dry eyes, not if you've ever carried something inside that made you feel like an outsider. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I want to see where you're all watching from. Now, relax, and let's get into today's story. Every morning begins this way, gentle, unspoken, and strangely warm. You don't know Lyra's full story yet, but something about the way she places the plate in front of Elara, never asking, never pausing, says more than words ever could. She doesn't stare, she doesn't flinch, she just sees him. And for a boy who's spent months hiding behind long hair and silence, that's everything. Their routine is sacred. He eats slowly. She wipes the counter. Their eyes meet for fractions of a second, enough to confirm the thread is still intact. Then one day, the air shifts. It's not the weather. It's the people. A group of sharply dressed strangers enters. Not the usual crowd. One man, loud, confident, the kind who talks with his whole chest, looks at Lyra a moment too long. Then, as she turns, he says something just loud enough, "Damn. They letting anyone serve food these days?" It's not the words. It's the tone, the smirk, the permission he gives others to laugh. The casual cruelty of someone who's never had to wear his damage on the outside. Lyra pauses for a heartbeat, then gives the faintest smile. Not defensive, not angry, just tired. And she keeps pouring coffee like nothing happened. The diner resumes its low hum, but you can feel it. Something under the surface tightens. Elara watches the whole thing. He doesn't say a word. But for the first time, he doesn't look away from her. His eyes stay locked on Lyra. And there's a flicker, of solidarity, maybe. Of recognition. Of the ache that comes from being seen only for the worst thing that's happened to you. The man who insulted her eats his eggs, pays, leaves. The world keeps spinning. But something has changed. Over the next few days, Elara's presence becomes something Lyra anticipates. She checks the window before the morning rush, wipes the same table twice, lines up the bread a little too neatly. But then, one morning, he's gone. No note. No call. No explanation. Just an empty window seat and the ache of absence. It's strange how quickly we get used to quiet company. How easily we form attachments without realizing it. Lyra doesn't ask the regulars, doesn't call the school. Just keeps looking at the door between customers. 3 days pass. And then, on the 4th, the door chimes. He's not a boy. He's a man, tall, composed, wearing that invisible armor only the military teaches. Hair like ash and steel. Eyes like deep water before a storm. He steps inside. Scans the room. Walks straight to Lyra, who's holding a coffee pot like a shield. And in a voice low and sure, he says, I'm Jackson Price. Elara is my son. He talks about you. Now the room falls still. Even the ceiling fan seems to hush for a moment. There's no handshake. No formal introduction. Just the kind of silence you learn to respect. Lyra nods once. Gestures toward the counter. Coffee? He smiles faintly. Black. And as he sits, this morning won't be like the others. You pour his coffee like it's routine, but your hands feel heavier. Jackson Price sits with the posture of a man trained to assess risk in every corner of a room. But he isn't looking around now. He's looking at you. He's never asked for help, he says. Not from me. Not from anyone. But he talks about you. Every morning, the lady who doesn't stare, you don't answer right away. You know this conversation is a stone skipping towards something deeper. So you nod, slow, thoughtful. He's a good kid. He's more than that, Jackson says. But he's been hiding it. Ever since the fire. Now you lean against the counter. He's giving you the beginning of a story. One that's been burning behind Elara's eyes from the moment you saw him. It was last year, Jackson begins. Our neighbor's house caught fire. Their daughter, little girl, maybe 6, got trapped inside. Everyone panicked. Everyone except him. He pauses, remembering, Elara didn't even shout. He just ran. Straight in. Pulled her out. They both made it, but... His jaw tightens. That scar on his face. That was from the burning beam that came down when they got to the porch. You picture the boy in his usual seat, chewing slowly, flinching from the world. The scar no longer just a mark, but a monument, and after that? You ask gently. Jackson exhales hard. He got quiet. Withdrawn. Wouldn't go to school, wouldn't talk to anyone. Hated the way people looked at him. Or didn't look at all. He sips the coffee like it's not hot enough to scald, but just bitter enough to keep him grounded. He started asking to come to this diner, he continues. Said it was peaceful. Said the lady there didn't ask questions. Didn't stare, just gave him toast. You glance at the back kitchen door. It's open an inch. As if the boy might still come through it. As if the silence still carries his outline. That lady, he says now, is the reason he started smiling again. It hits you harder than it should. You've never said more than a few words to Elara. Never asked his name. Never pried. But now, that silence feels like a kind of sacred thing you shared. A soft place in a loud world. Jackson doesn't touch his cup again. He just sits with his hands wrapped around it, elbows on the table like he's bracing against some invisible recoil. I'm grateful, he says. But I'm also here for something else. You meet his eyes, sharp, ocean-deep, military eyes. And you feel the shift before he even says it. I know who you are. You blink, but your face doesn't change. You've lived long enough with that part of yourself buried. Lyra Vance, he says. Navy corpsman. Forward medic. Afghanistan, 2009 to 2012. Attached to Marine Recon Unit Echo 7. That unit name is a strike to the chest. You haven't heard it spoken aloud in years. He leans forward. My unit. You stand still. Like the floor just dropped out under you and no one else noticed. We never saw your face, Jackson says. Not until the evac chopper. But I remember your voice. You were the one talking us through it. When Corporal Ramos lost his leg, when LT was bleeding out in the sand, when I couldn't hear anything but screaming, you were the voice on the other end of that headset. You swallow hard, the scar on your collarbone suddenly feeling warmer, more present, that day. He says, you saved 6 of us. You kept us calm, focused, alive. You want to deflect, say it was your job, say it's nothing. But his voice carries a kind of reverence that won't be brushed aside. He looks around the diner. The chipped booths, the quiet warmth, the smell of eggs and dust and peace. This is your refuge, isn't it? He says. This place. You nod once. I get it, he says. We all try to find one. A place where nobody knows the weight you carry. Then the bell over the door rings again, you both look up, and you see them. Not customers. Not tourists. Not even locals. One by one, they file in, men and women with the unmistakable gait of people who've lived through things they never talk about. The stance. The eyes. The energy, Marines, 5 of them. Maybe 6, they don't rush. They don't greet the others. They head straight for the counter like they've rehearsed it. Jackson turns to you. I reached out, he says. They remember. We all do. The first Marine steps forward. He's older now, with a cane and a limp, but his voice still has sandpaper in it. You pulled me out of hell, he says. I never got to say thank you. From his jacket, he pulls a small metal tag. Dog tag, bent and scorched. He slides it across the counter. I kept this, he says. But it belongs with you. You don't speak. Can't. Your hands hover near the tag like it might vanish, then the second Marine steps up. Then the third, each one carries something, an old patch, a torn sleeve, a letter. And each one tells you what you never expected to hear again, you mattered. You made a difference. You were seen, and as the diner fills not with orders and chatter but with gratitude and history, you realize something you hadn't before. Elara isn't the only one who came here to be seen, you did, too, and now, it's happening. You don't cry. Not right away. You hold it in the way people like you are trained to, tightened throat, blinkless stare, breath that catches but never shatters, because right now, you're standing in a diner that smells like burnt coffee and old syrup, and it's transformed into a sacred hall of memory. Every face looking at you carries its own ghosts, and every gift they place on the counter is more than a memento. It's an unspoken thank you from a moment you never thought would follow you here. One of the Marines, a woman with short silver hair and a jawline like a cliff, slides over a stained map with faint lines scrawled in pencil. You marked this, she says. Back in 11. The route that kept us from walking into that IED field. She taps the faded trail. This saved all our asses. You touch the paper with trembling fingers. You remember the night. You remember the static in your ears and the blood pooling in someone's boot and the way no one ever had enough morphine. You remember being 24 and praying you wouldn't forget how to breathe while telling someone else they'd be okay. Jackson steps closer now, not in command, but in solidarity. I told them where to find you, he says softly. Not to intrude, just to let you know, we still carry you with us. You finally speak. I thought, none of it mattered. That once I left, that was it. It didn't end, the woman with the map says. It just got quiet. And somehow that hurts more than the gunfire ever did, you nod. Barely. Then excuse yourself. Step into the back. Close the kitchen door quietly. You lean against the stainless steel counter, hands gripping the edge. There's no mirror in here, but you can see yourself, young, shaking, in a dust-choked uniform, hands soaked red, whispering over and over, hold on, I've got you, just hold on. You breathe. You let it pass through. And then, a voice, small, familiar, Lyra. You turn, there he is. Elara stands in the doorway, awkward, unsure, fingers tucked into the sleeves of his jacket. His hair is brushed to one side, revealing the scar in full. I saw them, he says. The people out front. The ones who came for you. You kneel, eye level now, the air between you charged with a strange kind of reverence. He hesitates. Were you a soldier? You shake your head. Not quite. I helped people who got hurt. He studies you. Like a medic? Yes, you say. Exactly that. He points to his cheek. This? Everyone stares at it. They think it's ugly. You want to say it's not. That it's brave. That it's beautiful. But you don't. Instead, You pulled down the collar of your uniform just enough to show the top of your own scar, white, faint, trailing like a river from collarbone to shoulder. Mine came from shrapnel, you say quietly. A blast. I didn't think it'd heal. I didn't want anyone to see it. He leans closer, studies it without flinching. There's no fear in his gaze now. No shame, only curiosity. Only understanding. Does it still hurt? He asks. You smile softly. Sometimes. But not the way it used to. He nods, slowly. Then, for the first time, he does something that makes your throat tighten more than any battlefield ever could. He reaches out. Not to touch. Just to mirror. He turns his cheek, scar side forward, and says, mine doesn't hurt anymore either. It's not loud. It's not triumphant. It's quiet. Like a secret. Like a sunrise breaking after too many nights, and then, without asking, he steps into your arms. You hold him like you've held dying men, gently, firmly, as if presence is the most powerful medicine there is. When you both return to the front, the room goes still again. But this time, there's no tension. Just warmth. The Marines make room. Some nod. One raises her cup, Elara takes his usual seat by the window, and you go back to pouring coffee. But this time, you're not invisible. Jackson doesn't sit right away. He walks over to the register, stands beside you. He wanted to come, he says. Said he wasn't afraid anymore. You glance at the boy. He's looking out the window, sunlight painting his face in warm gold. Scar and all. Jackson leans closer. That's you. You did that. No, you say quietly. We did that for each other. There's a pause. Then Jackson chuckles. He doesn't usually hug people. He doesn't usually talk. You have that effect on us, he says, and there's something different in his voice now. Not gratitude. Not admiration. Interest. You don't push it away. For once, you let the warmth stay, and when you look at him again, you don't just see the Marine. You see the father. The man. The survivor. You see someone who understands the cost of silence, and the power of kindness. Someone like you. It starts subtly, as many healing things do. The next morning, Elara is already seated before the diner even opens. He doesn't fidget this time. He sits tall, his cheek fully exposed to the morning sun, eyes steady on the door as if he's found an anchor in its frame. You bring him his usual, toast, lightly browned, and a glass of warm milk, and this time, he smiles first. Not a wide smile. Not the kind you photograph. The kind you earn. Thank you, he says. 2 words. They weigh more than any medal ever pinned on a chest. As the week unfolds, the energy inside the morning glory begins to shift. The Marines who visited that day return one by one, not in formation, not with gifts, just as customers. Regulars. They bring stories. Photographs. One of them brings a harmonica and plays a low, dusty tune in the back booth. When the crowd thins, word spreads. First among other veterans in town. Then to the local paper. Then to strangers who stop in, asking softly, is this the place where the boy and the medic are? But even with the new attention, the heart of the diner doesn't change. You still pour the coffee the same way. You still wipe the counter in small circles. But now, people meet your eyes. Not out of politeness, but out of respect. Then one day, the man who once made the cruel remark walks through the door again. He's not as polished this time. Tie slightly askew. The confidence in his stride tempered. You notice him the moment he enters, but you don't stop what you're doing. You keep filling the salt shakers, recentering the sugar jars, letting him approach in his own time. When he finally reaches the counter, he doesn't sit. I owe you an apology, he says, voice low. You glance up. He swallows. I said something ugly. About your scar. I didn't know. Doesn't excuse it. You wait. I read the article, he continues. About what you did. What you gave. And I saw the look on that boy's face. His words hang in the air like smoke. I judged you, he finishes. I didn't see the full picture. I just saw what made me uncomfortable. You meet his gaze. He's sweating now. Not from heat, but from shame, and you say, simply, "Thank you for coming back." He nods. A tight, grateful nod. Then leaves a generous tip and walks away, not triumphantly, but as if lighter than when he came in. Jackson sees the exchange from his seat. "When you come over to top off his coffee," he says, "that was graceful. Most people don't know what to do with regret," you reply. "But everyone deserves a second door." He watches you, not with surprise, but with growing admiration. "You ever think about telling your story?" he asks. You shake your head. "I lived it. That was enough." "But now," he says, voice lowering, "you're changing others just by being here." He's not wrong. That afternoon, a young woman comes in with her mother. She sits near Elara's booth and gently taps her own jawline, where the ridges of surgical scars peek beneath makeup. Elara notices. They share a look. He nods once. She nods back. No words exchanged, but everything said. Jackson invites you for a walk after closing time. It's cool outside. The dusk is quiet, and your steps sink without effort. You walk past the war memorial, past the old fire station, and into the edges of the town square. "Never thought I'd settle anywhere again," he admits. "Always figured I'd keep moving. Couldn't sit still. Couldn't trust peace." You smile softly. "I used to say silence was scarier than the worst noise." "What changed?" You gesture toward the diner in the distance. The golden light glowing inside like a hearth. "I stopped hiding from it," you say. "Started listening to what it had to say." He walks closer now. Not by accident. His hand brushes yours. Neither of you flinch. When he looks at you again, it's with the kind of honesty you rarely find outside of war zones or hospital rooms. "I see you," he says. "Not just the scar. All of it." You swallow thickly. "That scares me more than the fire ever did." "I know," he says. "Me too." And somehow, that truth feels safer than any promise. In the days that follow, your routines intertwine. He helps repair a window shutter that's been loose for months. You learn how he takes his eggs, scrambled hard, no salt. He watches how you fold napkins when you're deep in thought. You learn he hums when he's nervous. Elara watches it all. He doesn't speak of it, but he sees it. The small smiles, the extra moments. One evening, as you sweep the diner's floor and Jackson flips the chairs onto tables, Elara pauses at the counter and says something that makes your heart stop. "Are you too happy?" You both turn to him. His eyes are honest. Unafraid. "I think we're learning how to be," you say. He considers this. Then nods, satisfied. That night, you go home not alone. You go home seen, and under the quiet of your room, as the night hums with the soft song of the wind through the trees, you realize something rare. Your life didn't end with the war. It didn't freeze with the scar. It was always waiting for someone to say, "I see you." Still you. Always you. The thing about healing is that it rarely announces itself. It doesn't come with trumpets or sudden clarity. It arrives like steam curling off coffee or laughter in the middle of a sentence you didn't expect to matter. It comes in routines. 2 eggs, lightly browned toast, a boy who no longer hides his face behind a curtain of hair. It's been a few weeks now, and the morning glory is no longer just a diner. It's become a meeting place, a whisper in the community. A story told in low tones, in quiet admiration. People start dropping by who never would have before. A young vet fresh from deployment who just wants to sit near someone who understands. A retired nurse who lost her son in the Gulf War, bringing old photos and kind eyes. Even teens from the local school begin volunteering on weekends, saying it feels different here. And every morning, without fail, Elara sits at the window table. He greets Lyra now, not just with a nod but with words, sometimes even jokes. He asks questions. He helps carry trays. And once, he stands next to the harmonica player and hums along, no fear in his posture. You don't ask for this attention. But it comes anyway. The article from the local paper gets picked up by a regional news station. They call you a hero. The kind who disappears into quiet corners but leaves light in their wake. You agree to one interview, just one, and when the journalist asks, "Why haven't you told this story before?" you say, "Because I wasn't the story. They were." You mean the soldiers, the ones you treated, the ones who made it and the ones who didn't. You mean the ones who whispered your name through bloodied teeth and the ones who held your hand when the sun was going down fast. But you also mean Elara. You mean the boy who saved a life and paid for it with his skin and silence. You mean Jackson. You mean yourself. The day the camera crew shows up, you almost cancel, but Elara places his hand in yours and says, "It might help someone like me." So you stand in front of the lens, your scar visible, your voice steady, and you tell them not about war, but about kindness. You talk about what it's like to watch someone die and still carry on. What it's like to be judged by the marks you wear and to be forgiven anyway. What it's like to build a life in the ruins of old pain. You speak of morning light and toast and milk and silence made sacred, and when they ask about Jackson, you smile. "He reminds me," you say, "that strength doesn't always come with noise." After the broadcast, the letters pour in. Not just from veterans, from burn survivors, from medics, from children with cleft lips and teens with acne scars and old men with shaking hands. They write to say, "Thank you. I see myself in this." Jackson builds a small wooden plaque for the diner wall. It reads, "Here, scars are seen but never measured." Elara helps him screw it into the wall, right above his favorite seat, and then, one morning, maybe months later, you find a line outside the diner before the sun has fully risen. Not reporters, not tourists, veterans, nurses, paramedics, survivors, parents, kids. They've come to pay quiet tribute. Some just want to sit in silence. Some ask to meet you. Most simply say, "Thank you," and leave something behind, a medal, a patch, a note folded small. You keep them all. Jackson eventually moves into a house not far from the diner. He doesn't ask for more than what you offer. A smile, a touch, a shared past, a possible future. You fall into it slowly. You fall without needing to brace for impact. One afternoon, he says, "Do you ever think about going back to medicine?" You consider it. "I think I never really stopped." That night, as the diner closes, Elara brings over a drawing. It's of the diner, sketched in colored pencil, with 3 figures in the window, a tall man. A woman with a faint line along her collarbone. A boy, smiling, scar and all. He hands it to you. "Family," he says, simply. You frame it the next day. As the seasons shift and the morning glory becomes legend, your story becomes more than yours. It becomes a reminder that pain is not the end of the story. That judgment can be unlearned. That kindness leaves echoes longer than any war cry, and that love, real love, the kind forged in mutual understanding and unspoken pain, can arrive when you least expect it. In the form of a quiet boy, a haunted father, and a scarred woman who refused to look away, and you keep pouring the coffee, you keep smiling at those who hesitate, because you know now, scars are just proof that the wound was real, and the healing even more so. Take a breath now, let the clatter of the diner fade away. Let the distant hum of conversation slip into memory. There's a certain stillness that follows stories like this, an ache that isn't pain but recognition. A softness around the heart that reminds you of things endured. And things overcome. You saw yourself in Lyra, maybe. Or in Elara. Or in Jackson. Or maybe, you just saw someone you once knew. A face from long ago. A voice from a hospital bed. A hand that held yours when you weren't sure you'd make it through. Let that memory stay a moment longer. Let the silence feel less like emptiness and more like grace. The world doesn't often pause for stories like this. It rushes by. Loud and relentless. But here, in these quiet corners, we remember what matters, the courage to keep showing up. The power of being kind when no one's watching. The beauty of scars not hidden, but honored. if you're listening to this alone tonight, know this: you're seen. You're part of this tapestry too. And somewhere, someone is quietly grateful for the thread you've added to their story. So, stay soft, stay brave, keep walking toward the light, even if it's just the glow of a diner window in the early hours, because healing, it's closer than you think.